Welcome to Soul Rising. We're your hosts, Amy and Erin. We're two everyday mediums who are passionate about taking the woo-woo out of spirituality and bringing it down to earth. So put the kettle on, grab a chair, and join us.
Hi, welcome back, everybody.
Welcome back to the Soul Rising podcast. My goodness. You're hilarious.
Don't quit your day job.
I was just reflecting that we've been doing this for a year and a half. It will be 2 years this fall.
I know.
That's insane.
I love it because also I just feel
too.
like it's like also an opportunity for us to reconnect and chat. And
Yeah. I can imagine this like where we'll be like 60, and so we might record like once a month then. Right?
Yeah. Might start to dwindle, but we'll still be doing it.
We'll do a check-in. We'll be like, "Hello, everyone." Not that 60's old, please. It's not. Okay,
No.
Let's talk about when we're 80 and we come in and we're like, "Hi."
Yeah.
I went to the doctor today and I got some new medication.
We'll just start comparing our meds.
Yeah. Oh, that's so funny. So funny. Okay, so we're here today to talk about synchronicities. Which is always fun and always aplenty. I don't know, in my life at least, I feel like there's always something going on. But I also feel like we're like super aware of it.
Yeah. I feel like they're around us all the time. I feel like sometimes we miss them, but sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I think they're around quite a bit. Yeah.
Me too, which is why I said I think that we're like hyper aware of things because we're just like we are because of what we do and how we live. But like I feel like this episode might be a nice way to show like other people that they also have connection to spirit and like synchronicities happening in their life.
Yes. Ways to watch out for synchronicities.
Yeah, things like that.
Yeah.
So when we talk about a synchronicity, like what is your definition of synchronicity, or like what does that mean for you? If somebody's like, what the heck's a synchronicity? What would you say?
Oh, that's a really good question. I would say synchronicities are either an event or a series of events that take place that kind of and are connected. And I feel like, and sometimes we can't like explain it, and it's just, that's a really poor definition. You have to come back to me. But I think they're like either an event or a series of events that are related to maybe something going on in our lives that kind of just reaffirm things for us or give us this gentle little hug from the universe.
I agree. I was just looking. In psychology, a synchronicity is defined as the occurrence of a meaningful coincidence that seemed to have no cause. Mm-hmm. The underlying idea is that there is unity in diversity. In psychology, Carl Jung introduced the concept in his work. Yeah. A meaningful coincidence that seems to have no cause. So it's like, it's not like a causal relationship or something you immediately would be like this and this. It's like kind of an unexplainable thing,
something that you can't explain, but it has meaning for you.
But it has meaning, like deep meaning, and normally like a deep, like inner knowing or a meaning inside. Yeah, I would agree. I always tell people, like, with anything spiritual based, like anything to do with like connecting to spirit, whether psychically or like mediumistically, it's like it's a feeling that's like really hard to describe. Like I'm sure we've all seen something and been like, is that my, whoever you're thinking, who comes to mind immediately when you're thinking about that? Like, what does that feel like? I feel like we all have that. Like for me, in the last episode, I shared about the morning doves with my grandmother. And it's like, we all, like, it was not me who went, I think this is something meaningful. I was thinking of it, but it was one of the other people in the room that said it because they felt it. And they were like, oh, there's something to this. Like, this is significant. It's just a feeling you can't explain. Yeah. Like, it's not like we never see birds around. I see birds all day, every day, but like, I don't always feel like, oh, that's a sign.
Yep. It has to be something that you're thinking about, you're asking for, right? Some guidance, a sign. Um, I think a synchronicity could even be, well, I've talked about, when we've talked about this, when you are asking spirit for a sign or your guides for a sign, and they'll give it to you.
Mhm.
And it doesn't matter, how it comes, but it's going to come to you. And be open to how it comes. Um, and I think I shared this story like a while ago, but I was asking a sign from my spirit guides because I had heard on another podcast from another medium, sharing like, ask your guides for a sign.
Yep.
Be specific about what you want to see. Be open to how it comes, but be specific about
Yep.
what you want to see. So I asked for a frog,
Yep.
and the medium also said, give it a timeline. So I said, okay, within the next week,
Yep.
I would really, or by the end of the week, I'd really like to see a frog. And
Mhm.
it's interesting because I was looking at window displays, I was looking everywhere else, but I didn't.
You were looking for it.
I was looking for it, but I didn't see
Yeah.
it. We talked about this on the other podcast of like letting go, right?
Yeah,
Too, about
right.
letting go and surrendering. And as I was walking back, a car is parked, and on the license plate, there's a little frog. As I was walking back home from one of my errands,
Mhm.
and I went, okay,
Okay.
that's
There you go.
pretty freaking cool. Like, come on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Again, what are the chances? It's like, what are the chances, right? And it's like things kind of just have to line up for
Mhm.
that synchronicity, for that sign to take place. That person has to park in the car, or
I
park
know.
their
Think
car
about
in
how
the right
amazing that
time.
is. Yeah.
All of these things have to take place for you to see this.
It's a like it's kind of a miraculous thing when you really think about it. Like, yeah, because that person would have had to park there at that time.
At that
Like
time,
everything in their day,
at
the
that
traffic they were
location.
in, the interactions they had would have had to line up so they were there at the same time wherever you were going. You had to get
Mhm.
through the checkout or whatever you were
Yep.
doing for your errands to
Yep.
walk through at the stoplight. You would have crosswalk. You would have stopped at, like, all of that would have had to line up so that you were in the same place at the same time.
Yep. And I had
And
never seen
also,
that car before.
yeah, and also that your awareness
Yeah.
was taken to look at the
Look
license
at the
plate.
license plate.
Yeah, because that's probably not where you were expecting to see a frog.
I literally was expecting to see like a toy frog or
Yeah.
something like that, like, and it's similar to the story that I shared about my grandmother. I asked for a
Mhm.
hummingbird,
Yeah.
and that same day I had honestly, and honest to God, I forgot about it. I opened up a book that my student wanted to read,
There
and
was a
there's a part
hummingbird.
about a hummingbird in it, and I shared that story actually in her eulogy.
Yeah, couple
Yeah,
weeks. Oh, you did?
I did.
Oh, I'm glad.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then in the last episode we just recorded, in 72, we were talking about like the morning doves for me, and then
Yeah.
also like this book, right? And how I was asking for a sign from my grandmother that day and was expecting to see another mourning dove.
Yeah.
And then like took out this book, which was hers. This is her copy, and a piece of paper was in there with her handwriting talking about me. And like
Yeah.
I didn't expect to see that. And I flipped through this book multiple times and it never was there. Like it was, but I didn't
You just didn't
notice
see
it.
it,
I
right?
didn't see it.
But
And then
think
it like
about it.
pops out.
You had to be thinking about it,
Yep.
right? And it flew out
And
of the book.
what took me to like go to the book in the first place? Like, why did I flip through it then? Why did I
Yeah.
choose to like get up and stand up so that it fell out of the book? Like,
Mhm.
I just think it's it's special.
Yeah.
It's special. Yeah.
So maybe we can define it as like a series of unexplained events taking place, and creating a meaningful impact on individuals.
Yes,
Yeah.
on you as a
On
way to show you the support. And well, my hair is like wild.
Yeah,
The support, and it's like channeling big old lion hair today. Love and support,
Yeah.
when it comes from a loved one, but like also like say like it's
Maybe something
some
about a work or a job or
right, or sometimes I feel like
yeah.
it's just I've gone on record to say this before, like sometimes yes, it's your loved ones in spirit that are doing that, or your connection to your guides, but like
Mhm.
I feel like sometimes we see things, say we're like driving down the road and we're listening to a podcast and somebody uses a specific word, and then like we look up and we drive by a sign that has like the same word, and it's not like a common or like typical thing, it's like something very specific. Like I feel like that synchronicity could I feel like what spirit gives me about that is like it's a way to show that like, 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 it's a way to show that like you kind of like creating or manifesting, like in a way, because it's like thought creates you. This is a way to show you that when you think about something, then it shows up in your life. And so I think of it that way too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, a little bit like as an extra
Yeah.
layer to it. Like if
Yeah.
it's not connected, like say somebody's like, well, I don't have anybody in spirit that I'm close to or I think would want to guide me, right? But like all of these things happen. Who's that, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like it might be your, who knows, maybe it's your ancestors,
It could be your
maybe it's
ancestors,
your
people
spirit
you
guides.
respect. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we know that with readings, like you don't,
Yeah.
people that come through are not always who you
You
expect.
don't expect it. You don't expect it. I'm trying to think of like other synchronicities that have happened. There was one, I don't know if this would count or if this is, maybe it's part of it because it is intuition. Maybe it's more intuition based, but I got a new job recently.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And it's been going really well. And I was just, prior to this, I was like, I really need somewhere a little bit more secure and stable. I just need that, something a little
Yeah.
bit more stable. And I kept thinking to reach out to this, old classmate of mine who works at this location that I was thinking of applying at. And I just kept thinking about it and thinking about it, thinking about it. And even when, I didn't necessarily, I would be thinking about dinner, then all of a sudden it would pop into my head. Right.
Yeah.
And then I finally reached out and not sure what to expect from it because I really didn't know. And they were like, absolutely, well, I put in a good word for you and, got the interview and all that stuff. But I don't know if that's so much a synchronicity as that is just my intuition pushing me to do it. I just kept feeling like I'd been getting like new job, like kind of hints here and there. But yeah, I'm trying to think of other stuff that I've seen.
I think that's like when your intuition, like I'm just thinking of a client reading that I did last night. So like at the end of the reading, after I was finished, bringing through the things that I brought through, we were just kind of chatting and we were talking about spiritual development. And I had said to this person, for whatever reason, we actually were talking about autism and that she has a child on the spectrum, and that came up in a reading and like a bunch of things about it, and I really kind of tapped into her child's energy and like soul and brought through some messages as child's nonverbal and so not able to but as an adult, he's like an adult now. And so that was beautiful. But then we started chatting about that and I said, have you ever heard of Dolores Cannon? And she started laughing and she said, Amy, like literally my friend, like just very recently, like within the last few days, told me about Dolores Cannon. And so I've been thinking about getting a book of hers. And now you're bringing it up because I was telling her about like indigo children and like reading about Dolores's, what her experience and her take on that. And I was like, this is an example of how the universe can speak to you, right? So if like you're thinking something, or maybe you're not even thinking of it, right? Maybe it's like somebody just randomly brings it up and then somebody else brings it up. And that's a synchronicity, right? Yeah. Like, it's like all of us are unrelated. I don't know her friend, right? I didn't even know this woman before last night, but like somebody else brought it up and it sparked something in her for her to go, I think that I really should look into this. Yeah. And then for me to again then go do it. She's like, that's definitely something for me. Yeah. Yeah. That happens often, I find. Yeah. I find that within my work too. Like I'll be thinking about something. Like this is how I got into like, say like human design or astrology or anything. I'm trying to think of something else that I offer that I didn't before. But like human design, for instance, I don't offer it. But I kept hearing about it. And then also I would like do a reading with somebody and I'd say, do you know what human design is? And they might say yes or they might say no. But I started to bring in information about like potentially like their human design and like aspects of it or like their child's, and it was coming all in intuitively. And then when I started reading about human design, I'm like, oh, like I'm literally channeling human design information. I don't even know human design. Like that's why I got into it. Because like spirit was like, do it. But then the client would be like, so I did the thing and I figured it out and you're right. Like that is what my human design is. And I'm just like, you can't make it up. But I feel like the things that continue to show up like that too, definitely is something to be explored. Like the universe keeps
Little,
dropping the hint to you.
yeah,
It's like
little nugget.
human design, like, can you think of something in your life where you were thinking about it and then it like the
Well,
universe was like, do it, please? Well,
remember
this,
that YouTube, the
yes,
name,
that's right.
I was like hearing this name Sam everywhere, and I'm like, what the heck? And I'm like thinking maybe it's a guide. Okay, and I think I in one episode I brought up I think I have a guide named Sam.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and just going through YouTube and then coming across their channel and being like, oh, I'd love to do this one day. If one day it's on my best bucket list. That same week, like
I know.
that same week, I get a message from the producer, or whoever,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I literally thought it was spam. I was gonna delete it because I was like,
There's no way.
"There's no
Yeah.
way. This is
Yeah.
wild." Actually, it's funny that we're bringing that up because I was thinking about that. I did that today, and yeah,
That's really, really cool. And do you think you manifested that opportunity?
but I don't know because it just, yeah, I mean maybe, but it also feels like I've asked for a lot of things. I've said I'd
And
like to do this, What,
yeah.
I don't know what's the difference.
I feel like sometimes manifestation can happen immediately. And I think that when it does, to me, it means that like things were already lining up for that to kind of occur or to be in your life. Sometimes manifestations take years. Like, but I think it just how long it takes for that to happen, Yeah.
Or maybe somebody heard me and was like, okay.
Okay, cool. We'll do that.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because I won't share too much because I don't want to, but I like feel like I don't want to yet, but like I was kind of thinking about and like, oh, this would be awesome to have like a specific person come on my solo podcast.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to happen. And there's somebody like, because the person responded actually to a DM yesterday and was like, okay, cool, let's do that. And I don't want to tell you who it is yet, but it's somebody that's like well known in the spiritual world. And I'm like, oh my God. So I don't want to speak it out loud in case I make it not happen.
I know.
Yeah.
I do that all the time too. I'm like, I don't want to say anything more. I don't want to do anything. What if I jinx it? Or what if,
Yeah.
That's so exciting.
It is. I'm really excited. But do you think you can jinx things? Like, it's funny because I actually had a client recently. I did an intuitive guidance reading for them. And then they messaged me afterwards to thank me, but also had a question in it. And they said, I have gone to another reader before in the past, and they had mentioned that you should never speak about future, possibilities or predictions out loud because then you'll make them not happen. And I was like, I've never actually heard about that. I don't know if I put much stock into that at all. But what's your take on like that versus like jinxing something?
My take on that is we're made up of energy, thoughts have energy, and we can create energy. The stones that I have, I don't believe the stones that I have magical powers. Yeah. I think they have magical powers because I believe they have magical powers.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. If I think I'm going to jinx something, it's like if you think something bad happens in your day and then you're like, oh, this is such a bad day. And then something else happens and you're like, oh, I just keep, you're thinking about that. This was a bad day. And then things keep happening because we're thinking this is a bad day.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I think if you think it enough, just like people are like, believe in hexes or curses. Mm-hmm. If you believe you're jinxing yourself, you're jinxing yourself.
Okay, so let's redact the I don't want to jinx myself statement.
You're redacting it.
And instead, I will say, I don't want to speak it out loud because I want it to be an epic surprise. So there you go. It's happening. It's happening. There's no jinxing happening. It's happening, but I want it to be a surprise. So there you go. Okay. The importance of like words, like it's honestly, true. It is true. How often do we say things and we actually self-sabotage ourselves because of what we're saying?
Yeah, self-sabotaging thoughts.
Yeah.
I know. I'm terrible at it.
I'm terrible. I think like a lot of us are, because it's just the way that we've been taught to speak, and everybody speaks a certain way, like knock on wood. Although I do that all the time, but it's just a habit. Knock on wood. I read something where that comes from. I know.
Knock on my head.
I read before that the roots in that is because people used to believe, and still certainly there are people that still believe this,
Yeah.
that, there was little like fairies and things in the trees, and that they would knock on wood I forget what the purpose of that was. God, why did I start the story without like remembering it all? I thought it would come to me in the moment, but it was something to do with that, like knock on wood, like keep me safe, like make sure this is good. They knocked on the wood because that's where the little fairies lived, inside the wood.
Yeah. It's interesting though, because there's so much superstition around certain things, or old wives' tales, right? Like, and a lot of that, I mean, just from past research, and I feel like a lot of this stuff comes from fairy folklore or
Yeah.
fae folklore. Like, it's interesting.
I do have a couple synchronicity stories to tell you, but like first I want to tell you, because you're reminding me about a book that I'm reading, and I only have about 80 pages left, and it is blowing my freaking mind. A client about 3 weeks ago recommended it. We did the reading, and then at the end we discovered that we have a lot of like shared interests when it comes to like things we like to read about and learn about. And she said, "Have you ever heard of the book The Secret History of the World?" And I said, "No. Tell me more."
Yeah.
There's also a book called The Sacred History of the World by the same author. So
Oh.
my book says, like the cover of the author is Mark. Okay, get this. It's Mark Booth. Okay. And this is a whole, I know. This is a whole, I swear to God, it's Mark Booth. And I feel like I talked about that on a story, because one day I was like, I'm looking at this book and I'm like, Mark Booth, wild, right? Wild, because of the Booth story. If you guys don't know what we're talking about, this
Go
is
back
like,
to that episode.
I think it was last summer. I'll link the episode.
Link the episode. I'm gonna see if I can
Link
find
the Booth partner episode in the show notes. Anyways, this is just like an epic down the rabbit hole episode. I'll link it in the show notes so that you guys can listen to it if you missed it, as it was like over a year ago, I think, or last spring sometime. Anyways, his name is Mark Booth, but on some copies of the book, I noticed it has another name. It says Jonathan Black. They're both the same person. It's just his actual name is Mark Booth, but some copies say Jonathan Black, which is like a
pen name.
A pen name or something, but same person.
Right.
It's freaking amazing. I think you would like it because you like history.
Okay.
So it has a lot to do with like secret society and like Freemasonry and the underground, kind of like how that kind of information used to be kept underground, and like only secret societies knew about manifesting or about connection to spirit and like all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But anyways, it breaks down from like the beginning of time, really. And the level of consciousness, and then all these different figures over time, like Jesus and a ton of different people, even playwrights and Edison, and like all of these people. It talks about them being connected to bringing in new levels of consciousness. So anyways, it's wild, and it reframes everything. I'm not doing it justice, and I don't have the copy next to me, but seriously, I actually also found my copy at bookoutlet.ca, which is like a discount book retailer in Canada.
Yeah.
It was like $7 on there, and it was like $25 everywhere else. So just an FYI.
Okay.
It's so good. It's at the lot though. Like my husband picked it up one day and he's like, "You're reading this for fun?" Like it kind of like
a little heavy.
It's a lot, but he references a lot is remember that show that we talked about on Netflix where this guy would like. It was like, no, it was about this guy who was like, I don't know if he's like a historian or.
Ancient civilizations that.
Graham something. Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, I think that you should. I think that you should read it. There's talk about Atlantis in it. There's talks about all kinds of stuff. It reminds me of that because in it talk about how like, we all started as vegetable life, they call it, and it's essentially like plants and the consciousness of plants, and how then we turned into that, got combined in with animal, right? And then the animal makes us the person, and then something else adds to it. There's the consciousness adds to it, which creates the person. But it's really cool, and he talks about how like for instance the symbology of even things like Adam and Eve and the apple and the snake, and like what all that represents
Wow.
in yeah,
Yeah.
it's really cool. It's really cool.
Um, as you're talking, it's making me think about this book that Alex just
Okay.
which is really interesting. He's into the theory behind like psychedelics and like
Right.
um, so he's reading this book and it's called Alien Information Theory. And it's called Psychedelic Drug Technology and the Technologies and the Cosmic Game. I had never even heard of this book. Alex is like, it's a little bit heavy because sometimes they get into quantum physics.
Yep.
But basically, what this book, I'm going to give a brief synopsis in case our listeners are interested. It says humans have used a range of psychedelic drugs for communion with the gods, connection to nature, or for pure pleasure and wonder they generate as they transform the mind of the world. One natural psychedelic in particular towers above the rest in its astonishing power to replace the normal waking world with a bizarre alternate reality repellent with a diverse panoply of intelligent alien beings. This is like a kind of a lot, as well as being the most powerful and then dimethyltryptamine. Okay, I think I said that right. More commonly known as DMT, is also the most common naturally occurring psychedelic and can be found in countless plant species across Earth. In Alien Information Theory, neurobiologist, chemist, and pharmacologist, explains how DMT provides a secret to the very structure of our reality and how our universe can be likened to a cosmic game that we now find ourselves playing. And so he also talks about, the author is Dr. Andrew R. Gillimore. Gillimore explains how our reality was constructed using a fundamental code which generated the universe. So it's like really interesting. Kind of almost talks about like this matrix that we live in. And who is that philosopher? Is he a philosopher? Oh, I forget his name. Anyways, this is bad, but references him and about how we live in basically like a prison of art. Yeah. So interesting that like you're talking about just different realities and like, consciousness, and this book kind of talks about a different perspective. Anyways,
from a different
a different lens. So if anybody's interested, I've got that synopsis on Amazon. I don't know where else you can get it. Alex said he couldn't find it anywhere. But if you have a Kindle, it's $0.
It's on there. I recommend for both of you read this one next.
We're going to into that one.
So I'm going to read you the synopsis from Goodreads about The Secret History of the World. So it says, here for the first time in a complete history of the world from the beginning of time to the present day, based on the beliefs and writings of the secret societies, from the esoteric account of the evolution of the species to the occult roots of science, from the secrets of the Great Flood to the esoteric motives behind American foreign policy. Here is a narrative history that shows the basic facts of human existence on this planet can be viewed from a very different angle. Everything in this history is upside down, inside out, and the other way around. At the heart of the secret history of the world is a belief that we can reach an altered state of consciousness in which we can see things about the way the world works that are hidden from us in everyday commonsensical consciousness. This history shows us that by using secret techniques, people such as Leonardo da Vinci, Isaac Newton, and George Washington have worked themselves into this altered state and have been able to access supernatural levels of intelligence. There have been many books on this subject, but extraordinarily, no one has really listened to what the secret societies themselves say. The author has been helped in his researches by his friendship with a man who is an initiate of more than one secret society, and in one case, an initiate of the highest level. Wow. So yeah, he literally was, I think he said in it, he was almost initiated himself, but and I don't know if he has since he wrote this book, because it was written in 2007 and I haven't researched that, but he wanted to give the information based on like what he'd learned himself and from his communication with with this person before he did himself. But yeah, it's very, very, very cool. I think that you would enjoy it.
I think so.
As it's like blends history and the supernatural
elements together.
And there's religious aspects, like it talks
Yep.
about, you know, all the key figures in the Bible and all that kind of stuff, as well as key like figures in the history of the world, like people that we would know about. So yeah,
I'm
really
gonna check it
cool.
out.
And about
Yeah,
things
thank
that have
you.
been hidden, you know, with the church and in
Mhm.
Rome with the Pope and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's really cool. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, so that's a book that I don't know, came to me in a synchronistic kind of way. And then I
Yeah.
thought the booth part was kind of synchronistic, right? Follow the word booth, right?
Now
You
follow
got
Booth.
follow booth. Who knows? Maybe he's my booth partner. I don't know. Um, I
Well,
feel like I don't know if he's English or not, but that would be really interesting if he
that
is,
would be
because
really
remember we were talking, we found somebody in the UK.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so I want to quickly share a Blue Jay Feather story.
Yes, please.
So this is in a recent synchronistic kind of thing. So I have a client who found me in a very synchronistic
Yeah.
manner, as a lot of our clients
Yep.
I feel probably
Yep.
do. And they had shared with me that, you know, they were thinking about mediumship and like you know, wondering if it was something for them. And then they listened to a podcast that I was a guest on, and the episode we talked about was mediumship. And then they're like, okay. And then
Yep.
they started following me, booked a reading with me. And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
on this particular, so when we did the reading, the person's father was living but quite ill. Now I think the timing of this was beautiful because I had to reschedule this person initially because of the passing of my grandmother. So
Mm-hmm.
we rescheduled a little bit later, but her father was still living at the
Yep.
time, and you know, able to. She actually shared things that had come through in the reading, and he was kind of like, oh, you know, like interested in it,
Yep.
received the information. And you know, passed soon after,
Oh,
like within like a
right.
week or so
Yeah.
after. But we were discussing afterwards how it was a gift that she was able to share that with him, and maybe in some way it
It
helped the
helped.
process of, you know, the
You
transition,
never
who
know.
knows. But the
Yeah.
timing was kind of noteworthy. And
Wow.
then she was out for a walk. Now this was one day, I feel like last week. So we're, no, actually 10 days ago, because it's July 15th on the day of recording. And this happened on July 5th. Now that's significant, and I'll tell you why. So she sends me a picture and she's like, look what I just found when I was out for a walk. She sent me a picture of a blue jay feather. And I immediately thought to myself, oh, so cool. Because like she felt like that was from her father. She just felt it in
Yep.
that spirit sign.
Yep.
She knew it was from her dad. And so I was like, this is really cool because so a few months after my father passed, so it was like 7 months after he passed, but within that same year, I found a blue jay feather. And I also had this feeling like it was from my dad, and I actually took a picture of it. So I spent the next like 20 minutes scrolling through my old photos to try to find the picture of it because I wanted to share it with her. Then I find the picture, and I went, holy crap, because the day that I found it and the day I took a picture was July 5th, but 5 years before. So it was
Wow.
on the exact same day. They both were on July 5th. We found blue jay feathers from our
Our
fathers. And
father.
I felt the nudge to go find the picture to send it to her. So we were both like,
Both of them.
holy shit, you know,
Yeah.
like this is the kind of stuff you can't make up. Like,
No.
what are the odds that she found it? She
Yeah.
felt the nudge to tell me. I felt the nudge to go find the picture. And then it was also on July 5th. So we were like, okay, so that's an example of synchronicity.
Yeah.
Um,
That's.
uh, that's a wild one. Look at
Mm-hmm.
my arm hair. Like I'm
Yep.
literally standing straight up. That was really, really cool. And also with that picture, I had saved, let's see if I can find it. I saved this little, like when I found the blue jay feather, I was like, huh, um, I know I shared this on Instagram, so I'm going to find it. Where is it? Here it is. See if I can. I don't know if this is happening to your Instagram, but have you found like you're getting a lot of just like white screen lately where it's not showing you the picture?
No, but
Oh, I wonder if it's my internet. But my internet seems fine. Like we're recording this and it's fine.
I don't
Anyways, I
know.
can't find the picture because it's not showing me, because it's showing up like a white screen and it's not showing me the actual picture. Like look, like this post, I
Yeah,
can see
but
it
you
like
can't.
this, but then when I scroll, the picture's
Oh,
gone. So I don't know why that won't show it to me. Maybe that's a
weird.
weird spirit thing. But anyways, at the time of me finding the blue jay feather, I also Googled like, what does it mean to find a blue jay feather?
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
some of the messages were like, your spiritual abilities opening up, encouragement to go down the spiritual path and continue to go down,
Mm-hmm.
to start new projects, to believe in yourself, blah, 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 blah. And so I shared that with her, as I felt that was a message for her. And also because
Yes.
her mediumship kind of abilities are
Yeah.
opening up as well with the loss of her father. So I thought that was really cool and noteworthy.
Well, yeah,
And
thank you for sharing that.
you're
Wow.
welcome. And then one other, I don't know, I guess this would be a synchronicity in a way. So another friend of mine who is a medium and she felt, so this is how this happened. So her and I have never done anything together,
Yeah.
right? As there was some, I don't know how much I can speak to this. Like we are good friends, we always have been, but there was somebody else in her life that she kind of went through her mediumship training with and did
Mm-hmm.
all
Mm-hmm.
that stuff with. And they used to do events and things like that.
Yeah.
And that relationship, something traumatic happened. Okay. And so there then was a wound around trusting
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
people,
Yeah.
a sister wound.
Yeah.
I think we've kind of talked a
We
little
talked
bit
about this. Yeah.
about things
Yeah. Yeah.
before. And so we just hadn't worked together because of
Yeah.
this sister wound, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so she had a reading with somebody else, and this medium brought up that there would be a relationship, a reconnecting of a relationship that would heal the sister wound, and that we would come together and work together. And she's like, okay, cool. Like, I can't wait till that happens. And then a couple nights later, she had a dream and she dreamt about me. And she's like, okay, it's Amy. So she reached out to me and she asked if we could do a podcast together, and we did.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah, and then we decided to do a mediumship demonstration, which happened about a week ago, and it went
Yeah.
really well. But that date intuitively came to me. Like she asked me if I would do the demo, and then I said, for whatever reason, I keep hearing July 7th, July 7th, July 7th. Are
Yeah.
you free on July 7th? She said yes. So that's when we did it. And then that day, I was like, why is July 7th so special? Like, what is it about July 7th? So I started to like think about it, and I was like looking through my social media memories, and a lot of things have happened on July 7th. Like for instance, the first ultrasound I had with my last pregnancy. So like we talked about how I had a baby loss, and
Yeah.
then I conceived him unexpectedly. And then I was extremely worried, that something was going to go wrong again. And they scheduled me for an ultrasound on July 7th. And that's the date that I found out that he was okay and was going to stick around.
Yeah.
And so there was that. And then there was like the last time I saw this friend that I just talked about was on July 7th, but 6 years beforehand. So we were like, really weird. Then I had a conversation with somebody. This other person messaged me on Instagram, and she was asking me about astrology and like asking me my opinion of like, what does this mean or whatever. So I was talking to her about it. And I said, by the way, I feel this nudge to go like dig out a book that I want to recommend to you. So I spent the next hour trying to locate this book, and it's called The Book of Houses.
Mm-hmm.
So it's this little tiny book, reasonably, and I think it's like $9 on Amazon. I would highly recommend it for anybody. You don't have to be into astrology to be into this book, but essentially it talks about the year, right? As like there's it's a wheel, right? But also like there's certain time periods. So it breaks down the year by houses. Okay, so there's 12 houses in your astrological chart. But not everybody's houses are different. Like we all have different stuff in it. So there's a beginning and an end, and this is the beginning of the end of this seeding cycle. Okay, so it's like it talks about like when's the best time for you to seed things, when's the best time for you to manifest, when like what time of the year is especially important about what you're thinking about, what you're doing, what you're taking action of, and how does that affect the whole rest of the annual year. So it's really, really cool. And at the back of it, it has a way to figure out all that information for you. So anybody can figure it out, and it's not difficult to do. So I pick up this book to show her, and then I open it up. And the house that represents the beginning of this annual seeding year, the date it starts is July 7th. I was like, what the heck, right? Like it was just wild to me. So like that book also I was like intuitively led to go dig it out so I could show the person, but also so that I could open up and realize, hey, July 7th to August 8th is like the most important part of the year for me to get really serious about what I want and to do a lot of manifesting and dream big. And then the rest of the year is when the things start to show up. So I was like, okay, Spirit, thank you. So July 7th, it was just interesting, but that's another way. Cause like, what are the odds of that?
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Wow.
And I think it's also interesting because
It's
I was
so in
looking at the dates
alignment.
I worked out of like some of the other significant cycles in the year. And one is my father's birthday, like
Yeah.
literally the day of his birthday, and then another is the day that my grandmother passed.
Oh
So
my
what are the odds of
God.
that? Of like 12 selected dates of the year, what are the odds that two of them are so significant to
Significant
me
to you.
in my life? So I don't know,
Interesting.
but I just wanted to share
That
that
is,
with you because I thought
yeah,
it was really cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And do you, Amy, do you write your experiences down? Do you write sometimes journal about the synchronicities that happen?
Sometimes less often now.
Mhm.
Most of the times I'll like share on my
Yeah,
Instagram.
yeah,
I'll type it out in the notes app or whatever, and then I'll just post it as a story so I can share it with people. But that's also a way to document it.
yeah.
But no, I don't so much. I haven't been very good about journaling lately.
I haven't either. I was just curious.
I go through an ebb and flow
Yeah,
about
yeah.
journaling.
About journaling.
Um,
Yeah,
I ebb and flow about all things that I know that are good for me, right? Like
yeah.
I'll go through periods of like drinking water like a boss to like being severely dehydrated. I don't know. Why do we do this? Why do we
That is
do this?
cool.
Um, yeah, so I thought that was cool. But yeah, synchronicities are happening all the time for all of us.
All the time.
I feel like the more, like, you can call it bias, sure, whatever. Like, if that's what you want to call it, I don't care. It doesn't matter, right? That's
Yeah.
kind of what I shared in that post. Like, some might just call that a coincidence, but we call it, we choose to think of it differently because this is just
Pretty.
shit you can't make up, right? Like, it's like, what?
No,
Um,
no.
so
It's
I don't know. I think there's a beauty in going, I think there's something like, what does it hurt for you to think
yeah.
that it's a message from the universe,
Yes.
right? Like, what does it hurt for you to feel like it's some sort of like magical little
A
wink?
little bit like you're doing the right thing. I am
Good job, 5 stars.
5 stars. Yeah. Right. Like remember when I was thinking of going back to school to do a certificate program in autism and behavioral science, and kept going back and forth with it, and finally was like, okay, still like, is this the right path for me? Well, I mean, wouldn't you know it? I was giving a reading to somebody that she reached out to me. I'd given her a reading years when I first started out. And this was at, I would get my nails done there with my mom.
Mm-hmm.
So sweet. And they found out that this is what I did. And so they closed the shop down, and I gave everybody that worked there a little bit of a reading. And they
Wow.
gave me a free manicure, right? Just as
Mm-hmm.
like a thank you, which was so nice. And I had said some things to this one of the women there, and she reached out years later, and I've always like thought about her, and she was like, you said these things, and here's my son, and he was born on this date,
Mm-hmm.
and all these
Mm-hmm.
really really amazing things. And turns out her son had autism, or has
Mm-hmm.
autism, and is getting services that I offer to kids. And I kind of thought, oh, that's what I do. Like that's what I'm going to school for now. So it was just a really nice like affirmation. And
Mm-hmm.
ever since then, I've been finding that I've been just surrounded by neurodiverse people. My
Mm-hmm.
therapist recently told me she's neurodiverse, which I'm like, I love.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I just found it was really just, you're in alignment. Like this is
Mm-hmm.
the path, keep going.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That reminds me of the client session that I referenced already that I did last
Yeah.
night. And I won't share personal details, but like we were sharing that too, like how, her child is like now in their late 20s. So we're talking about the 90s, right? Like when he was born and she was accessing ABA and all those
Yeah.
different things with him and
Yeah.
really, really struggling because she was viewing it as something to fix,
Yeah.
right? And it was really, really hard. And like as time has gone on and she's just kind of surrendered and like sees the gift of him and anyways, it's beautiful. But she was also sharing about how neurodiverse or like people that need support and services. Like she works within healthcare, which is
Yeah.
something that I brought through and does something specific, not with people on the spectrum, but something for people with disabilities. And she's like, when I really aligned on that path and made a decision, that's what I was going to do, which happened, after I really surrendered and viewed the gift of my son and not as something to fix, but as something he's teaching me and something
Yes.
to
Yes.
experience and enjoy. it set me on the path of the people that I now work with. And so it feels like those people just continue to show up in my life.
Yeah.
And she's like, and now
Yeah.
she's like, it's you guys. Cause she was talking about how there's so many connections. She's an American, but there's so many connections with different like people in Canada, myself including, that are on the spiritual path. So she's like, I call you guys my Canadian girls. Like I talk about you guys like to my friends and they don't even know who you are. But she was saying like now your guys are all showing up in my life,
Wow.
right? Like when
Yeah.
I need you.
Yeah.
And so I think
I love
it's
that.
amazing, beautiful thing. But like how when we align to our path,
Yeah.
then the people and the situations, the opportunities find us.
Yeah. It just, things
They
just click.
just find it, just things just click into place.
Yeah. I love
And I also don't, I want to be, I want to be clear. Like, I also don't think there's like one set chosen path for any of us.
No.
But I feel like when we like decide, like we talked in the last episode about decision, right? And me deciding something. And then the minute I decided, it's like, oh, and then I feel like just deciding then like, let me see. I want to read something to you. I hope it shows up on my thing. I posted this the other day. I was contemplating with Spirit. This is what Spirit gave me. So the actual like post that I shared on Instagram says, not having the answers does not equate to not being prepared or not being ready. Preparedness and readiness comes as you go. As you're doing that, you earn that by trusting and leaning in. And then in the like content I wrote, it has been our collective experience in recent human history, and then in brackets I wrote thousands of years, that we yearn for a sense of 100% certainty before we make a move or a decision. We have come to expect that. It is our signpost for, okay, now I'm ready.
Yeah.
But what if that feeling of certainty was really just us leaning into trusting our own inner compass, and the universe then responds to that trust? So what if it was never about anything external to you? The external just began to line up after you decided based on a false sense of certainty. And I was like,
wow,
boom.
Yeah.
Like, yes, I think that's what it is. I think that the universe is like, decide.
Yeah.
Okay, that's your path. That's good. Okay, now we're going to respond. You know, like, I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
I think that we think like, okay, like the external is going to validate me all the time. I think it does, but I think it happens in response to what's happening already inside.
Yes. 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 Yeah.
So like, it's kind of just reframing like decision making and all of that to like inside and aligning inside, and then the outside aligns.
When it's like that balance with the energy. When you're feeling balanced with the energies, all that energy is just lining up.
Absolutely. So yeah, I kind of wanted to like end with that because I feel like it's a cool note and reminder for all of us. And I feel that, like, I know that that's truth.
Yeah.
Because Spirit often says to me, like, there's more than one path. It's not like you just came in here with like one straight and narrow path. Like there's more than one opportunity for you. Right.
I agree. Yeah.
It's aligning, like, so like if somebody says to me like if they ask like what's my purpose, it never comes through as a specific job. Like it wouldn't come through for you to be like whatever your role is right now, like but it would be something about like a core essence or a value. And so long as you're embodying and expressing that, it doesn't matter what the hell you do. Like you could be like a waitress, you could be like working in recycling, you know, like it wouldn't matter as long as like whatever you're doing allows you to express and embody that. And I feel like people need to hear that. Like I feel like I hear from Spirit like often, you can't mess this up. As long as you're following that, you can't mess it up. Life is a choose your own adventure story. Like it really is.
It is.
I think you get to the same place in the end.
Oh,
so long as you're listening and like aligning to that. I don't like, so that's helped. I think that's helped me why I feel so much relief about this move that we discussed in the last episode, because I know that I didn't mess it up. I've stepped out of the doubt. Like, what if that was the wrong decision? And now I'm just like, it is the right decision because I said it is. And now the environment's going to respond to that because I made the decision. You know what I mean? Because I feel like either would have been okay. Either would have worked out. That's truly how I feel. And I hope that helps someone or empowers them in making a decision.
There are no mistakes.
No. All experience and It's all experience. That's what we're here. That's why we came here, to experience life
Have a human
on
experience.
earth as a human.
Yep.
And remember, I would say, remember who you are. Remember who the heck you are inside.
Yep.
Powerful creator.
Yes.
I think that's a nice way to end off today.
I agree. That was beautiful. Beautifully said,
Okay.
Amy.
Oh, well, thank you. Thanks for the banter and the back and forth conversation. And I hope that you guys can, take a moment to reflect and reflect on how spirit is showing up in your lives.
Mhm.
Like, what are those little synchronicities that can't be explained?
Yeah.
Maybe writing them down is a good idea. You know what, me, I'm always talking about an evidence journal.
I'm always like, oh, I should practice what I preach.
Yeah, write it down. Yeah.
Write it down.
And, like, anyway,
Yeah.
you can do it on Instagram like me. That can be your documentation if you want
Video
to.
it, audio, voice it,
Something.
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something. Remind yourself that you are connected and you are creating and you are important. So have a great rest of your day, listeners. We'll see you next week.
See ya. Bye.
Bye.
If you like what you're hearing, don't forget to give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcast and tune in each week as we dish on all things spiritual.
Don't forget to like, comment on what you would like to hear us talk about next, and subscribe.